Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Hope your holidays continue to go well. And now that the week of football has completely cleared, it's time to take a step back and see where we stand in the draft. And yes, mostly I'm talking about the Denver Broncos pick, which of course we're getting in this draft. Uh, Real quick, Seattle's native pick is currently at number 12, which some fans are starting to get pretty excited about. I'm not to that point yet. I even see some fans saying, hey, we should just lose out, try to pick at number 8 overall. We could have the number 3 and the number 8 pick. I'll talk about that if we lose to the Jets. If we lose to the Jets, then I'll start having that conversation. But right now, I'm just focused on this Seahawks team playing their next two games with the goal of making the playoffs in mind. So, the Denver pick, anyway. After the week cleared, thanks to the absolute whipping they took at the hands of the Los Angeles Rams, the pick holds at number 3 overall. So, let's evaluate where the pick could go and what we need to watch for in the coming 2 weeks. So, first of all, the pick moving up, that's going to be hard, right? Because as you can see, they have a full game advantage on the Bears. We need the Bears to win a game. The Bears have 2 games left. They play the Lions and they play the Vikings. I think our only hope is that they play the Vikings and beat them because the Vikings have nothing to play for and rest their starters. The Bears are playing half decent football, so it's not completely unreasonable to think they could do it. But you'd still need it to happen, and you'd need the Vikings to actually allow it to happen by resting starters. No guarantee they do that. But that's what it takes. And as for Houston, we need Houston to win both of their games. I believe they play the Jaguars, who are red hot right now, and they also play the Colts, who are the opposite of red hot right now. So it's not completely unreasonable that we could move up to number 2 or even number 1, but it's going to be tricky. I think that Houston team has kind of mastered the art of playing kind of competitive football, but not really good football, and not good enough to win, like constantly just good enough to put on a show. And I think they've got designs on that number 1 pick pretty solidly. So I don't think that we're going to see this pick move up. Maybe it moves up 1 spot just because the Vikings might play their backups in week 18, but I'm not convinced that's going to happen either. So as of right now, Denver's pick moving up, possible but unlikely. So let's talk about what we need to happen to prevent that pick from moving down, because that's obviously what we want to protect against. And here's the bottom line. Denver Broncos have 2 games left. They're completely flushing their coaching staff. They fired their head coach, their offensive line coach, and their special teams coach. So they're basically already setting up for the offseason, but they've got 2 games left. They're playing the Chiefs. I'm not thinking about that game. Broncos are going to get completely annihilated by the Chiefs. That's an easy game for them. No concern there. The interesting game is week 18 at home in Mile High, or whatever they call it now, against the Chargers. So that is the game to watch. Now, first of all, let's try to understand the damage that is possible here. If Denver wins that last game, who could they fall behind in the draft order? They could fall behind the Arizona Cardinals, obviously, because they have the same record. They could fall behind the Colts, because the Colts have 4 wins. If the Broncos get to 5 wins, they could fall below the Colts. And the Falcons, who have 5 wins, have a very weak strength of schedule. Denver's is actually significantly higher. So if Denver wins a game, their pick is liable to fall to below Atlanta's. However, the Cardinals play the Falcons. So one of those teams has to win. And if one of those teams wins that game, assuming there's no tie, then Denver winning 1 game is not going to be enough to bump their pick below that team. So therefore, worst case scenario, Denver's pick falls to number 5, below the loser of the Cardinals-Falcons game and below the Colts. And by the way, the Colts do play the Texans. If the Colts do win that game, which despite how bad they look lately, they probably should win that game. I don't know if they will. but that would also take the Colts off the table here. So you could see a scenario where the Colts beat the Texans, the Falcons beat the Cardinals. I guess that would be the most likely outcome here. And then Denver wins Week 18, but their pick would only drop one spot to number 4. Number 4. So it's really hard for us to not get at least a top 4 pick. The question is it going to be higher than that? It currently sits at 3 if Denver wants to just go ahead and lose out, which I think is still very possible, by the way. I don't know what that team is going to... I don't know if that team is going to give a crap about these next 2 games. I don't know if they're going to play hard for their new coach because they know... Here's the thing. They know Rosberg is not going to be the head coach next year. He's the definition of an interim coach. So I seriously doubt they would look at that and go, oh, we got to play hard for this guy. But let's review the possibilities here because this is... it's like you're trying to construct a firewall, right? You're trying to figure out all the contingencies here. So if Denver wins Week 18, we probably get the number 4 pick. If they lose, we probably get the number 3 pick. I think that's the best way I can bottom line it. Maybe it goes to 5, but I think more likely is it goes to 4. So let's talk about the Chargers for a second here, because last night they clinched a playoff spot by beating the Colts. So they are in. Here's the issue. As of right now, the Chargers are a full game back of the Ravens, and they are a full game ahead, plus a tiebreaker that is guaranteed ahead of the Dolphins. So right now the Chargers are firmly seated in that number 6 spot. The question is, when we get to Week 18, are the Chargers going to have any motivation to play hard? Are they going to have any motivation to make sure they don't have to play the Chiefs? Are they going to have to worry about the Dolphins taking the 6th spot? Or can they think, hey, we can get a game against Jacksonville if we move up 1 spot? Let's see. So the Chargers, they play the Rams at home next week. Well, it's in LA. Both teams are LA teams, so whatever. But technically it's a home game against the Rams. I'm not really buying the Rams. I know they played really well against the Broncos a couple days ago. But at the end of the day, I think that had more to do with the Broncos than the Rams. So you got to assume as of right now the Chargers win that game. I think that's just a reasonable assumption. So assuming the Chargers do win that game, then they go up to a 10-6. Would that be enough to put them ahead of Baltimore? Probably not. Baltimore's playing a home game against Pittsburgh. Now, Pittsburgh's playing well lately. Baltimore's not going to have Lamar Jackson, it looks like. Could go either way, I guess. I'd still probably give the slight nod to Baltimore in this one. If that is the case, then the Ravens are going to maintain their 1-game lead on the Chargers. And then they play the Bengals in the last game of the year on the road. So the Chargers, we'll see what the timing is, because we don't know what time the games are going to get played in Week 18 yet. We don't have that information yet. But if the Chargers go into Week 18, 1 game behind the Ravens, knowing the Ravens are playing without Lamar Jackson in Cincinnati, then they might be thinking, hey, this is our opportunity, right? They have a better conference record than the Ravens as of this moment. And the Ravens' conference record would take a hit if they lose to the Bengals. So that's possible. That's actually the best possible path forward. The Chargers need to win the game in Week 18 so they can move up to number 5 and play Jacksonville instead of, I guess, Cincinnati. Are the Dolphins going to help us? Doesn't feel like it. Doesn't feel like it. The problem here is that Tua Tagovailoa, I'll learn how to pronounce his name one day, but Tua is back in concussion protocol, and the Dolphins, who are reeling, by the way, having lost 4 straight games, 4, are playing in New England with probably Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback. So that's a problem, because the Dolphins are already probably locked into the 7th seed at best because they lost the head-to-head game against the Chargers. But if they lose this upcoming game to the Patriots, then they're just in a fight for their playoff lives, and the Chargers aren't even going to be thinking about them. So It's very unlikely the Dolphins get involved, but there remains some hope that the Ravens could provide some incentive for the Chargers in Week 18. Because if the Chargers have incentive in Week 18, I'm sure they're going to take care of business. If they're looking at that Week 18 matchup going, that's a game we need to win to ensure we can play Jacksonville in round 1 instead of Cincinnati, that should be motivation enough. There's a big difference between playing a team like the Bengals, who made the Super Bowl last year, and a team like the Jaguars that admittedly are hot right now, but we're talking about a second-year quarterback. We're talking about a also-ran coach. It's just a very different thing. And that should be enough. But we're going to need the Chargers to beat the Rams to make it happen. If the Chargers lose to the Rams next week and the Ravens beat the Steelers, none of this matters. This conversation doesn't really matter that much, because then the Chargers really won't have much to play for in week 18, unless I guess the Dolphins win and then they have to fend off the Dolphins for that last spot. But do they care that much? Would they rather play the Bengals than the Chiefs by enough to motivate them to play their starters in a game when they already have a playoff spot locked in? I don't know. Every coach thinks about things differently. Every coach does things differently. So we'll see. But that is basically what is going on here. The goal right now, because I'm already writing off that Chiefs game, Denver's going to lose that game all day. We need the Chargers to have something to play for in Week 18. And when you look at it, they should, I would say should, be able to look at that game and go, this is an opportunity for us to move from the 6 to the 5. And that's actually pretty valuable. All right, see you guys later. Go Hawks. Hope you guys have a good day. More videos later.